I wonder what you have had to unlearn, give up, adjust that would allow you to achieve what you've been able to achieve within the company.
Trying to take the emotion out of business. There should be no emotion in business other than celebration. So being so close to this brand and having this company has been started by my grandfather, and I put my heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's almost impossible not to take things personally, not to take rejections or criticism about what you're doing personally. So focusing on that and knowing that as soon as someone is able to have an opinion, they will have an opinion of whatever it is that you're doing, but you cannot let that elicit an emotional response from you. And I think that's been something that has been, a challenge for me to work on, but something that I've been able to let go. People are going to say and do whatever it is that they want to say and do. It shouldn't affect what it is that we're doing.
Hello and welcome to At the Podium with me, Patrick Huey. At the Podium is a multimedia platform where story by story, we explore the resiliency of the human spirit with people who are using their own personal journeys to leave a positive and transformative imprint on our world today. At the Podium holds a space for meaningful conversation, inspiration, and life. Today, I'm thrilled to share the podium with Michael Pugliese. Michael is an accomplished skincare formulator, manufacturer, educator, and the third generation CEO of Circadia, a science-led professional skincare company known for its deep commitment to education, science, and disciplined innovation. Under his leadership, Circadia has achieved global recognition and distribution, expanding access to science-driven skincare solutions across diverse skin types, cultures, and markets. Most recently, Michael was named a recipient of the 2025 Beauty Changes Lives Legacy Award, an honor recognizing individuals who have made an enduring impact on the beauty and wellness industry through education, mentorship, and philanthropy. At the core of Michael's work is a belief in stewardship of science, of people, and of a legacy that began with his grandfather, Dr. Peter T. Pugliese. Today, we're going to talk about what it takes to build something enduring in an industry that's constantly evolving through integrity, discernment, and taking the long view. But before we begin, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment below to help support my channel. Michael, welcome to At the Podium.
Thank you so much, Patrick. It's an honor to be with you and your audience today. I was thrilled to get the invitation when I saw you recently, and I'm just so happy to be here with you.
Yeah, I've been wanting to talk to you for a long time because your company, the work that your family does and has done, cast a very long and I think important shadow in the industry because it's been a very powerful player for generations now in the industry. I wanted to start. I'm always interested in legacy and how these companies begin. And you're a third generation CEO, which is rare in the spa and skincare industry. So I'm curious, can you take us back to when your grandfather founded the company and what problem was he trying to solve? Because normally we start businesses to solve a problem. So what was that problem and what are the principles that were embedded in Circadia from day one?
Yeah, it really is an incredible story. We're celebrating 25 years in business next year. So he founded Circadia in 2001. So it's been quite some time. One of the things that we always talk about is legacy, right? And you brought it up immediately, and it's something that we talk about a lot within the company because so much of who we are, that pace was set by him in those early years. And even before he founded Circadia, he was solving problems for many brands in the industry. He was actually really regarded as an answer man in the area of formulary expertise and skin physiology research, and had worked with a number of really big cosmetic houses, helping to develop and manufacture products. And it's interesting. The framing of the question is, what problem was he solving? I've never thought about it that way, but indeed he was. He was looking at a lot of the ingredients that were on the market that were being used very readily and heavily things that are kind of standard at the time for sure, and they're still used to this day, but a lot of heavy retinoic acid and glycolic acid, ascorbic acid, and hydroquinone, things that have place in the industry. But when used together at that time in very high concentrations, they were actually creating a lot of skin conditions, skin issues, and challenges that are well documented now. So he wanted to kind of be an alternative to some of those more harsher, aggressive ingredients. And that's really where the idea of creating a brand and creating formulas based on the science of circadian rhythms and really tapping into the body's own natural defense and repair mechanisms, defending from environmental stressors, pollution, sunlight, metabolic function during the day, and helping to engage the natural repair systems at night. And it was very timely time for him to be able to do that because shortly thereafter, the ingredient side of the industry, the suppliers that I've worked with now for decades, started focusing more, I would say, on skin health and tapping into those systems. So it was a perfect time. It was a perfect moment. But yeah, it truly was that challenge, that problem that he was looking to solve. And Circadia was born from that. And of course, there's, a lot of reasons. He had a lot of estheticians following him and loving him and what he did. Everyone begging him, just make your own products and, we'll buy those from you. And of course, that happened as well. But it was that early acknowledgement that what was being used was having a negative impact on the skin.
There's an interesting word that was in the bio that I read about the company and you, and it's this idea of stewardship, which I think is really interesting when it's part of your family DNA, the company that you're talking about. And I'm wondering for you, A, what is in the company that is part of that stewardship and the DNA of that company that is what's going to happen, that's what's going to be, no matter what's happening and what we describe as an ever evolving, changing daily industry. And how do you feel about being the person who's been handed that role of steward for a company that's generations old now?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I mean, honestly, he and I shared a very, very close relationship all throughout my childhood and my adolescence. And I was only 24 when I joined the company, and it was still a small brand, right? The family still had research and development and manufacturing, publishing that were part of the family empire, so to speak. But it was a huge undertaking for me to step in and be the one that was going to kind of carry this tradition on, carry this legacy. And there's a lot of things that we harken back to and look at and say, oh, this is what helped to shape us and what helped to mold us. But one of the things that I've always really admired about my grandfather is his knowledge and his willingness to share, to educate. He's recognized as a world-renowned educator, but it was really the time and the mentorship that he gave and showed to skincare professionals, estheticians in the industry. And he was truly a beloved figure in the business. And just seeing that and recognizing that, and someone that I loved and cared about so much, how he was regarded in the industry, it just made me want to be closer to that and be part of that. So when the opportunity came, I was ready for it. I didn't know anything at all. Certainly not what I know now. So I wasn't prepared in the sense of what I needed to learn a lot of things to be able to take that on. But mentally, I was there. I thought, okay, this is what I was meant to do. This is what I'm going to do. So carrying that tradition on, and also, being a very provider focused brand, and really, really focusing on education for the skincare professionals wherever they are in their career. We really want to meet them where they are. But if you're a brand new student just out of school, or you've been a veteran for 20 plus years, and you're looking to educate, be educated, take another step and go to another level in your career, that's something that we've always tried to foster and steward into individuals' lives.
Hmm. It's interesting because I wonder, part of owning a business is making smart, hopefully making and taking smart risks and thinking about how you grow and what responsibility means. And I wonder what that means when it's a company that is yours. How does that impact that kind of risk taking that you sort of have to take when you're growing a business? How does it impact the sense of responsibility that you feel towards this company?
And that's a great question too. I think it's really a balance. And looking back at the 20 plus years that I've been involved in the company now and in the industry, I think it really is a balance. I would say that my appetite for risk early on was much greater. I still do have an appetite for it, and we do like to look at ourselves as industry disruptors and just doing things a little bit differently. Of course, keeping an eye on trends and what's going on in the industry, but really being able to protect that legacy and protect what it is that we're recognized for, and all the work that my grandfather did is something that's always been in the back of my mind. But again, taking those opportunities that have risks associated with them, whether it's opening up a new distribution channel, or trying something new ingredient technology wise, or even going against the grain of what the industry seemingly has been doing for years, whether it's with introduction of a new type of product or a new type of technology that's available. I would say that the appetite for risk has been healthy over the years. But again, once you get to a certain place in your career and in life, I feel like you kind of have a lot of those things sorted out.
Mhm.
But it still is every once in a while fun to roll the dice and see where they land.
Let's see what happens. Let's see.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting. I've been in the spa industry since 2002, so 23 years now, and I've seen a huge shift in how the industry operates and sort of the space that the spa and wellness industry now occupy in our culture and our popular sort of mythology of what wellness looks like and all those things. But one thing that's very different is that skincare has become highly democratized in the current world. I mean, we still have legacy brands and these sort of really big companies that sort of dictate potentially what our choices are when we come to consuming. We have Sephora's, we have Blue Mercury's, and these sort of like specialty entities that sort of dispense skincare. But on the other side, there is an entire market for direct to consumer skincare brands that have sort of proliferated on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. And I wonder, I don't want to speak ill of people's work, but I sometimes question the science behind what's being put out in these sort of mass market ways. And I wonder, do you see those types of brands as threats to your market share for Circadia? And how are you responding to that? Or is it more of an opportunity to clarify who you guys are in the market?
Another great provocative question, Patrick. I love it. It's interesting, and I would say it depends on how you look at it. I mean, I think what TikTok and Instagram and the shopping and the internet in general has really showed us is that the world is a really, really big place, and there's a lot of different consumers out there, and people want to
Mhm.
consume their personal care products very, very differently. When we look at who's competition, I mean, really every single discretionary dollar is competition. If you look at top of funnel and how the what people are allocating towards making themselves look better and feel better, and how they're doing their skincare routine. So I think it's positive in all ways. Even when we look at young kids getting into Sephora, I mean, obviously putting some controls and some restrictions around things. But I think the more educated the consumer becomes about how important skincare and skin health is, and protecting the skin at a young age, and not doing all the crazy tanning beds or no sunscreen stuff that a lot of our generation did, I think it's great. As far as a strategy and looking at that, I think it's a great opportunity to really highlight who we are as a company, and really not necessarily set the record straight,
Mm.
but come with legitimate education about what products are doing, how they function, what they're definitely not doing for certain people. And it's a fine line to walk too, because if you present yourself as someone who's there to kind of debunk or push to the side other brands that are promoting it may be a single ingredient or a trend or a concept, when we know that it takes a plethora of technologies working together to really generate the results that most people are looking for, whether it's aging or acne or skin sensitivities in general. You really need to have a lot of tools in the toolkit to get the results that you're looking for. So when I see a new brand come out, or a brand that's been established, and they kind of downput something that's going on, I see it as not necessarily a good thing. I never think it's a good look, right? I
Mm.
think
Yeah.
immediately tells us, hey, you're trying to downplay something in order to promote what it is that you have. And we all have an agenda, right? We're all promoting something. But again, I do think it's an opportunity for brands that stand on legitimate, well-established scientific concepts to be able to educate those that are looking to get more knowledge and insight. And it, like I said, it's a big market out there. And it actually, in recent years, I've paid very close attention to who is out there, who's selling, who the brands are. And it's interesting that the pro channel doesn't get a lot of attention. You mentioned the Sephoras and the Blue Mercuries of the world, but the pro channel is something that is just kind of this this other thing that most people that are in the, whether it's the banking space or the investing space, they don't even really pay attention to it nearly as much, which is interesting. When we look at professional skincare, you would think that we would be dominating the marketplace, and it's really not. It's these direct to consumer products, and some of them are fantastic, and some of them do use the same type of ingredient technology that we have. But I think again, it's a deeper level of understanding and education that professional brands can provide. They don't necessarily provide it all the time, but they can provide. And I think that's what sets us apart from, you know, every other consumer brand that's on the market.
You've said a lot of different things there that are really sort of interesting to me. One is the investor class and the investor market that is really getting a foothold in the spa and wellness industry because they read the same trend reports that we do. They see the exact same things that we see. And I think, I say often to my colleagues, there's a whole other world happening around wellness that does not involve us. And I attend different conferences and speak at different conferences, and there is an entire investor class who don't have a real um, sort of emotional, sentimental attachment to more traditional forms, professional channels of how we've sort of conducted wellness and well-being over the past 30 to 40 years. They're looking for things that can scale quickly, that don't have a lot of overhead, that can be franchised, which is a very different type of business model than many of the types of businesses that I've worked in and run sort of exist within. So I think that's a very interesting change in the sort of funding of spa and wellness, and that will definitely impact how we sort of behave in the industry. My second thought that you said, and I don't know if you meant to say it this way, but I do think there is something about, and it comes up on this show a lot, about the idea of people being able to see themselves when they are purchasing, when they are dreaming about their futures, when they're doing the things that people do in their lives. And I think part of what our industry has done, I don't think they've done it intentionally, is that it's been a very sort of specific, unique kind of person and experience that we're talking about for the most part.
Yeah.
We've left the door wide open for a lot of disruption to come in and start talking to the consumer that just kind of, maybe they can't afford to pay, $300 for a facial at a spa, or the things that you sort of, do and have to be able to afford when you go to many spas in globally. It's not just in the United States. But I think that's a very interesting thought. And you talk about it in terms of Circadia, in terms of, really being able to meet people where they are, either culturally, skincare types, skin condition types, which I think is a very interesting approach to how you talk to a consumer to
Mhm.
get them to become part of your family of products.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're right. It is how people see themselves. That is something that needs to be taken into consideration. And even when we look at trends in the industry, one of the things that I've been really digging into lately is neuro-cosmetic. It's kind of an emerging concept. A lot of it is about how we feel about how we look, right? There's other parts of it too, very, very deep rooted in science part, but the things that are a little bit more subjective, I think, and it's so interesting now is that we're measuring performance and product on emotion. So I'm like, wow, that is opens up a whole new category of opportunity, not just for product development, but for performance as well.
Yeah. As much as we want to be scientific based, there does have to be some sort of evidentiary component to it, because if it does make me feel better, then I feel better. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
know if you can always tie that back to a specific metric, but there's real value in how one thinks and feels about themselves based upon their experiential existence, right? I think.
Yeah. Absolutely. We've got some exciting things coming in 2026, as you might imagine, with some new launches and some new developments. So I'll be happy to share that with you and the audience as they start to come next year. And
Yeah.
there's a little bit of that will be adding to the Circadia story.
When you're dealing with trends and what's coming, quickly and furiously at us all, how do you make those decisions about where you're going to place your big bets? Because it's It's always evolving. It's always changing. You can get caught up in a lot of like chasing things, and then all of a sudden you're out of business because no one knows who you are anymore.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, I think the navigating of that it is difficult because there's a lot on the market. There's a lot of things that are available, and I think for a brand, especially one that's been around as long as we have, you do have to stay true to your identity. But again, it's that appetite for risk and being able to identify what's not a trend and what actually is, an opportunity to follow the science. I always say we don't chase trends, we follow science, right? So if we know that there's some legitimacy behind some of the ingredients, then it's certainly worth exploring. But you've got to stay on top of what's happening around you, right? You've got to be at least aware of the changes because there's at least two or three moments in my career at Circadia, whether it's as a formulator, whether it's as the CEO, as the educator, the main esthetician who's helping to carry on the legacy of education, some pivotal moments there on whether it's an ingredient trend like peptides that came quickly and are a staple in the industry now, or how we consume the education, right? The digital platforms that became absolute necessities during our COVID times that are now very, very relevant to how we continue to stay on top of educating new and existing clients. And it's just these things, you've got to pay attention to what's going on. If you've got blinders on and you're too focused on your lane, then things can get missed. You may miss out on an opportunity to do what it is that we're here to do, which is to serve our clients.
I wonder how you respond. I know so much about business is growth and expansion and opening new markets. I mean, you've been really, I can't think of the adjective I want to use, but you've really taken Circadia into these very large international markets, working through distribution channels, really getting the product sort of out of the lower 48 and into the seven continents
Yeah.
minus Antarctica. But I wonder when is the answer no? When is the answer not more work expansion, but no? And then I tie that to how do you handle the sometimes opportunistic opportunities that may come up when it's like a L'Oreal wants to buy the brand
Yeah.
or whomever wants to buy the brand? How do you make those choices?
Yeah, I would say as far as the growth potential, and I'll start with that because we expanded into a lot of markets very quickly, and that was a strategy. We created some really really great core relationships with distribution teams and partnerships, and it was meant to open Circadia up to several markets at a time. I mean, you look at Europe, there's 30 different countries there that you could potentially have new distribution for, and the same with our Middle East partners to cover some of Asia and some of Africa as well. So
Yep.
having great partnerships there that can be managed and maintained on a same scale while we're still continuing to grow aggressively here in the US has been a great strategy. It takes constant monitoring. We have to pivot and make some changes when we see when it's necessary. We took a look at our how fast we grew in some of those places and said, okay, we have to dial this back a little bit because as you grow, there's things that you don't take into account. It's regulatory challenges, it's changes in policy, politically around the world. There's so many things that can influence your game plan when it comes to introducing to new markets. So I think it's the monitoring of that has allowed us to continue to grow and really picking and choosing exactly where we want to spend our time.
So you've had a ton of success with Circadia, and no one ever has a straight trajectory towards success. So I wonder what hasn't worked out and what has it taught you about leadership yourself
Yeah.
in those moments?
I mean, there's a laundry list of things that don't quite play out the way that we planned them. The biggest challenge when scaling and growing this operation has been, finding the right team members, right? And without a strategy behind that, without, establishing core values and being able to articulate our identity and who we are, that has been probably the most interesting part because you can have someone that comes on board that looks great on paper and has an incredible resume and wonderful work history. But if it doesn't gel with the team and the leadership and the culture and the values of what's already there, then it's not going to be a good fit. So I would say the how we hire, fire, and promote really needed structure. one of the other big challenges, of course, is how we're creating space, right? Literally creating physical space within Circadia. So I purchased a building a few years ago, and I thought, okay, this is it. This is the last warehouse and production facility and office building that I'll never ever need. We need another one, right? So it's looking at how we can bring on more literally real estate so that we have the space to stretch out, right? I always want Circadia to be a brand that's manufactured in the United States, in Pennsylvania, where my grandfather planted the Circadia flag, and that's been extremely important to me, along with making sure that we're maintaining our status as a professional brand here to support the provider. So being here is extremely important, but the challenges of making sure that we have the right people and we have the right literally real estate here, that's been one that we're still working through.
Right. I think people are listening to what you're saying, and it's very inspiring. It's very aspirational to think about what is possible, what can be done. I wonder what you have had to unlearn, give up, adjust that would allow you to achieve what you've been able to achieve within the company. Like what you, Michael, have had to say, oh, that doesn't work. I got to shift that.
Trying to take the emotion out of business. Another soundbite, another quote, and I think it was Brandon Dawson that said this one, is that there should be no emotion in business other than celebration. So being so close to this brand, and having this company has been started by my grandfather, and I put my heart and soul and blood, sweat, and tears into it. It's almost impossible not to take things personally, not to take rejections or criticism about what you're doing personally. So focusing on that and knowing that as soon as someone is able to have an opinion, they will have an opinion of whatever it is that you're doing, but you cannot let that elicit an emotional response from you. And I think that's been something that has been, a challenge for me to work on, but something that I've been able to let go. People are going to say and do whatever it is that they want to say and do. It shouldn't affect what it is that we're doing.
What did it mean for you to receive that award from Beauty Changes Lives in 2025?
It was a moment. It was a moment. I honestly was in a bit of disbelief when I got the phone call that I was being honored, and I'm like, me? Why? And then, to look at those that had been honored before, people that I really knew and had respected, Horst from Aveda. I mean, just a list of people that are just who's who in the industry. So it was a great honor. And, taking a look back and having conversations with close friends and people that I care about and that I trust, and say, hey, listen, you're a voice in the industry. You've done some pretty amazing things. Take a moment to enjoy it. So I did. I was able to really enjoy that. It meant a lot to me. It means a lot to be recognized and honored by people that you respect. It's not why we do it, but when it happens, it certainly it feels great. And to be able to celebrate with my team and my people and my family, my children, my mother, my aunts, people that I care about the most in this world, and to have them see me up on stage being honored with this incredible award in front of all these people, it was a moment. It felt great.
Was it Maya Angelou who said, I stand as one, but I come as 10,000? There's like a lot of people who contribute to you walking onto that stage and getting that award.
And it's something that I've never lost sight of in all the years, is that, as much as I feel like I've been able to do, I do it because I'm supporting a purpose, an idea, and what it is that we're trying to do as a team. And by doing that, it garners this recognition. So to be able to be honored for that later, it really is a special thing.
You talk about stewardship and you talk about extending the legacy that started with your grandfather, and you have two daughters. So I wonder how you think about how that colors how you think about the work and the choices that you make.
It definitely has an influence on what it is that I decide to do and how I decide to do it. People ask me all the time, so are the girls going to take over the company? One day, if they want to, I would love to see them do that. But I heard this growing up as well, is that, you really have to give your kids the support that they need without doing too much for them. So I want them to be able to do whatever it is that they want to do, whatever they are passionate about and their path that they find in life. I want to be able to be there to support them. So I wrestle with the idea of saying, okay, here's the company, right? Because I know there's a lot of people in the industry that thought that that's what happened for me, and it didn't. I was definitely put on a path, and my grandfather, being the just incredible person that he was, he gave me the guidance that I needed to learn these things on my own. But he also gave me the tough love to say, well, here's your opportunity, but you've got to figure it out.
Yeah. There's no gimmies anywhere.
No, no, and it was a lot of work. I mean, and we spent a lot of time together. I will say that he spent a lot of time with me, because by the time he founded the company, he was already at retirement age. He was already in his late 70s, So he gave me the vision to be able to say, you can do this, you can go out on your own, you can make these things happen, but you've got to figure out how to do it. And just being able to sit with him and learn from him, and for him to point me in the right direction, go talk to this person, go talk to that person. Many times in my life, look back and said, God, people would have killed to be in that position, to be able to sit at the dinner table with Dr. Pugliese for 3 meals a day and talk about skin and ingredients and business and experience and science and all these things that I was able to absorb from him for so many years. And I'm so grateful that I had that chance to be able to do that, because a lot of people don't get that chance.
It also makes me think about what you're saying is that we're sort of in this interesting cultural moment where expertise is kind of like, you don't really need it. But what you're describing is a situation where you were actually put into situations where you had to garner the expertise. It wasn't just like, okay, here you go. But it was about you walking the steps to get to the place where you could sit where you are today and make the decisions that you make that have actually probably. Okay, so let me ask you: if your grandfather it's totally related, but if your grandfather were to come back and see what you've done, what would his perspective be on it?
I think he might be in disbelief. I think he might be in disbelief at just how far we've come and how much we've accomplished. I know he would be proud. I know he would be extremely proud, but I don't think that he or I at the time ever had the thought that we would be where we are today.
I'm sitting here talking to you, and I'm sitting here thinking, I know how much you travel. I know the demands of your job. I don't know the exact demands, but I understand the context in which these demands exist for you and your company. And how do you manage being the father of two girls and then running an empire?
Yeah, it is a challenge. And I don't have as much time with them as I would like. And as they get older, it's always in the back of my head is that this goes so fast. The last 20 years have gone so fast, and I know the next 20 are going to go by even faster as I'm getting older. But I had to say, I have an incredible support team. Both of my daughters' mothers are incredible. They believe in what it is that I'm doing. They're very loving mothers, and they're very supporting of what it is that I'm trying to do. So if I didn't have that, it probably would be a very, very different story to be able to find that balance. But for sure, I look now and think, is the time that I'm not getting to spend with them, how is that impacting our future, our relationship? But I cherish every moment that I have with them. Certainly, as we all get a little bit older, it's a goal of mine to be able to take time and spend more time with them. But I know they see me. I know they see what I'm doing, and I get to bring them like they were there for the award show. So they know that what I'm doing has meaning. Even at this young age, they know how important what it is that I'm doing and how important Circadia is to so many people.
Yeah. Yeah. What for you has been your biggest leap of faith that surprised you that you had to take in order to move forward in your life and career?
That's a good one. I think some of the biggest challenges, again, in the beginning, just trying to figure everything out. The cash flow was not what it is today. The resources were very, very scarce. I think there was a transition in the family when my grandfather was well past retirement age, and he had to retire. We were selling off some of the parts of the company, manufacturing and the research and development part, that had kind of been the lifeblood of influx for Circadia and kind of helped to support us there. That wasn't there. And that was probably around 2009, right? So we were already struggling with the economic collapse that we were all experiencing. And then all of a sudden the ability for me to kind of piggyback some of the projects into what my grandfather and my uncle with manufacturing were already doing kind of went away. So I had to borrow money to set up my own entire operation. So I
Mhm.
set up my own R&D, set up my own manufacturing, and it was very, very small, humble beginnings. I mean, we had two little tanks where we were making most of the products, and I had a very, very lean team at the time. So I think that was probably the biggest bet I put on myself at that time, because if it didn't work out, there was no contingency plan. And we were already strapped because the economy wasn't doing well, but we were growing. So, I had some really smart people around me at the time that said, look, your growth trajectory is enough to support this, but if it doesn't continue to grow, you're in trouble. so
Mm.
so making that bet, that leap of faith, and being able to say, okay, now I have all my eggs in the Circadia basket, but it's my basket.
Mm.
So now I'm gonna maximize and do that. And it turned out to be the biggest bet that I ever made and the smartest one that I ever made, because it's so important to be able to have it, talking about business again, margins on the product, having the ability to be nimble, right? When you're small and you're trying to get in front of customers, you've got to be able to make relatively quick decisions, and pivot on things as you see curveballs coming at you out of left field. So I think that was a really, really important, very pivotal part of the business. Had we not taken that risk, had that not happened, I don't think we'd be where we are today.
Mm. On this season of the show, we've been talking to people about what their legacies are, and you stand in an amazing legacy that you have obviously expanded. And I wonder for you, what legacy and whatever that means, do you hope to leave?
For me, the most important thing is that I want to be recognized by my children as a good father. I want my kids to know that I worked hard and I did most of what I did to with them in mind. I also want to be known for being someone who has brought not just opportunity to those that we serve, but also education as well. I really enjoy when I see on the forums and I hear people talking about how great Circadia's education is and how open we are to sharing knowledge and information. How the business has changed their lives, how we have supported smaller professionals that couldn't get another brand to even look at them because they didn't have enough money for an opening order. So those are the things that I want to be recognized and remembered for, is that we created something that these professionals, they had a home, they felt like they were part of a community, they felt seen, they felt heard. And that's also, I think, a big part of our success now, is that we don't turn people away, right? We will work with you wherever you are in your career and in your business. And I think that's rare in the industry.
It is. And then we haven't gone deep into the educational part of your business, but I think that is life changing for people. And having worked in places that don't have always the most resources,
Yeah.
the idea that you train someone and educate them for so many people is literally life changing. You take a chance on them.
Yeah, it can be. I mean, it's one of the reasons we have our Sage Michaela Lucas Scholarship Fund, which is named after my daughter, for Black, Indigenous, and people of color. And it's $25,000 a year, $5,000 scholarships, and awarded annually. We've raised over $150,000 over the last several years, and donated. And some of the recipients have become ambassadors to Circadia. They are top educators in our company. So we know that we're making a difference. We know we're making an impact, and helping people achieve their goals and get to where they want to be. And I think that there's no greater achievement that we can have as a company than that.
Michael, thank you so much for this time today. I really appreciate you sitting down and giving us a little window into your soul and into your business. I think these stories help people.
Well, thank you. And I really appreciate the invitation. I appreciate the opportunity to share. I hope it bodes well, and the audience enjoys enjoys it.
I'm sure they will. So thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
To those of you who are watching or listening, remember, we all have a voice. We all will leave a legacy. Live and choose wisely. Bye, everyone. Thank you again, Michael.
Thank you.